What's the Story podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped has taken over the world and is now available in all of Europe. For our listeners in Ireland, the UK and all across Europe, you can now purchase Manscaped products. So get yourself the right tools for your family jewels. We're all friends here. Let's be a little bit honest with each other. We've all tried to give ourselves a little tidy up, probably using the scissors and going delicately around the edges. Some of us might have tried a different razor that nicked us or scratched us. Some of us might have even ventured into the world of hair removal cream, which probably left your tallywhacker on fire, irritation and itch, and you praying you never have to go through that again. And ladies, I'm not just talking to the lads here. If you're sick of your fella stuff, looking like an angry Rastafarian, then Manscaped is what you need. The Lawnmower 3.0 electric trimmer is the greatest male grooming trimmer on the planet. If you haven't tried it yet, you're missing out. This third generation trimmer is waterproof. It features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce those grooming accidents we talked about, and the battery will last up to 90 minutes. The good news is the Lawnmower 3.0 is included in Manscaped's Perfect Package 3.0 kit. That kit also includes Crop Preserver, otherwise known as their ball deodorant. It also comes with Crop Reviver, Manscaped's own ball toner. Use these on your boys below the waist and you're going to feel refreshed and ready for anything. The Perfect Package 3.0 also comes with their shed travel bag and anti-chafing boxer briefs to complement not only their Perfect Package, but your package too. Head on over to manscaped.com and put in the code WTSPOD to get 20% off your order and free shipping. Yeah, that's right, 20% off your order and free shipping when you use the code WTSPOD at manscaped.com. Head on over, check it out. Your balls will thank you. Hello everybody and welcome to WTS Pod, episode number 222. Remember that ad? 22222.
Oh yeah, what was that for?
I can't remember, it was Pat Shorter, wasn't it?
Was the 222 bit the digits of a phone number he was advertising?
I think so, yeah.
1-800-22222.
Yeah, I can't remember, but yeah.
Someone tell us. I bet you. Do you know who will tell us? Jared, who listens, will. I bet you he'll tweet us and tell us. He
will. Long time listener at this point and a gent by all accounts. I love when he posts photos of his car because I think it's basically a spaceship.
Yeah, Tesla.
It's just mad. But anyway,
he's showing off because he has a Tesla.
Yeah, if I had one, I'd be showing off, Graham. Quite frankly.
So I'm just jealous.
You know. But yeah, anyway, hello and welcome to the 222nd edition of the award-winning What's the Story podcast. My name is Danny Murray.
And I'm Graham Merrigan.
All right. Graham, presume you are in extreme comfort, groomed to perfection thanks to our friends in Manscaped.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's it.
My town halls have never smelt better with the exclusive Manscaped ball deodorant.
That's it, yeah. And you're using that Crop Reviver. Toner. You're using that Crop Reviver, eh? Oh,
absolutely.
This is it, man. This is it. I tell you one thing. I said it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I'll say it again because after using the product again, the LED torch is ridiculous. I don't think I could use a razor that doesn't have a torch now. It sounds so stupid, but at the same time, man, until you've experienced it and until you realise how simple and how effective it is, you're missing out.
So get your Manscaped, go on to manscaped.com, get your 20% off, plus free shipping. just enter in the code or the coupon or code voucher WTS Pod and enjoy.
As they say. Anyway, Mero,
Yes.
do you have anything to waffle about, or do you just want to go straight into our wonderful guest for this week?
I suppose I'll watch briefly.
Oh, very good.
You know my hatred for the monarch, for all
do.
monarchs.
So I apologise. I'm recording downstairs, and there's a clatter of noise in the background because the dogs are being fed, which is actually kind of on theme with this episode. But just if
very good.
Yeah, if you can hear a load of noise, apologies. I'll have words with Oksana later. She'll get 2 days in the attic for this carry on.
Good enough for her. Only joking, son. No, I don't like monarchs worldwide. I hate all monarchs. I hate the idea of being born into privilege for nothing. And you and I had been talking as we do every day, and you were telling me you're watching The Crown, and I was thinking, right, will I start it? And I do love history. So I watched it. I'm on season 4, and I enjoy it, and I'm delighted it has my hatred has grown for monarchs even watching it. So
of course,
there was never a chance, I don't think, of me having empathy for any of these characters, which I don't. And thanks for putting me onto it.
You've no empathy at all towards them.
For any of the characters, none whatsoever.
Even the hardship that Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, has had to suffer.
Absolutely not. What hardship?
His family dying in a horrific plane crash after his sister gave birth.
I suppose.
Having to flee a country in an orange crate for fear of being murdered.
Yeah, there was elements of it, but I got over it quick enough.
Yeah.
I mean, during those scenes, the scenes were actually very good. It's very well produced, and it's a really, I think it's a really good show. It's a high end soap, isn't it?
Yeah, like I think it's.
I don't mean that derogatory either.
No, I get what you mean. Like it's augmented fact, I suppose. They're kind of embellishing some of the stories, aren't they? They're taking a bit of Hollywood privilege, so to speak. So like they are
Hollywood style of Philip's story. You could not watch it and think God love him. But as soon as Philip evolves into the ghastly human being that he is,
did you not feel sorry for El Margot at all? No.
In what sense? That she wasn't the queen?
Well, I mean the sense that she's always second fiddle. She couldn't pursue the love life she wished.
Well, I did feel, but like this, here's the thing: she could fulfill that love if she wanted to, but she didn't want to get rid of her privileges.
But to get rid of her privileges would mean get rid of her family. Essentially, it's not. See, this is the thing. It's not just. She wouldn't just be giving up the titles. She'd be essentially excommunicated. Sure, look what happened to the Duke of York.
But they didn't.
He did become the Duke of York, didn't he?
She hardly loved Townsend, though. Come on, like you only knew him a few months.
Look,
I just find the whole thing.
Well, it wasn't a few months. It was much longer than a few months.
But I find the whole thing when I was watching it. Did you do this when you watched it? That during the episode you'd pause it and you go onto Wikipedia.
Well, I'd go other places other than Wikipedia, but yeah, I would. I'd pause and I'd be like, "Geez, I didn't know that," and I'd go and have a little Google of it and whatnot. Yeah. But,
what other places would you go other than Wikipedia as a source of history?
Various history websites, various royal archives and that kind of thing. Yeah.
I just Google and Wikipedia comes up first, and then some of the stuff you find out is crazy. I am enjoying it. I'm up to season 4 where Diana Spencer enters, and there's somewhat empathy over that shit show of a marriage with Charles, that the marriage should never have happened.
Did you in any way enjoy Charles going off to learn Welsh? Did the Welsh Republican character appeal to you?
I felt that was just a filler episode. Did you not?
Oh, I enjoyed that. I thought that was.
No, I did not. I did not enjoy it. I just. It was one of those episodes where I was browsing Twitter at the same time, like.
Gotcha. Yeah, but overall, you've enjoyed your foray into watching the Crown.
I've definitely enjoyed it. I've definitely recommend it. Like,
yeah,
if you're a series watcher, a Netflix watcher, and it'd be something that if you haven't watched, you'd be watching over the second week of Christmas. You know, that week where you're just looking to watch TV. It's like I only started it 2 weeks ago and I'm nearly finished it. I'm really enjoyed it. Like, I've enjoyed the characters. As I said to you when I started season 3, it took me a while to get used to the new cast, because obviously the characters have evolved and got older, so they needed to change the cast, and I understand that. But it just took me a while, and now I actually prefer Olivia Colman to Claire Foy as Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, I maybe I prefer Matt Smith as Philip though. I thought he was a brilliant Philip.
He was a brilliant Philip, yeah.
Yeah.
But the newer Philip, I think, resembles him more.
He does, yeah.
What do you make of the Charles?
I think I think your man that plays him is absolutely brilliant. Especially because now you're on to season 4, right? So I don't know if you've noticed it, but if you look at season 3 Charles and season 4 Charles, it's the same actor. But in season 4, he's developed that hunch and that kind of lean forward that he didn't have in season 3. So he's progressing the character physically, as well as we're getting into very kind of artsy, wankery kind of nuances of whatever. But it is because the character evolution is a big part of the show, and it's watching it because they got each series is a decade effectively, isn't it? Yeah. So what's her name from X-Files?
Gillian Anderson as Thatcher.
Amazing as Thatcher. You want to box her in the face, like.
Yeah.
You know.
You texted me as well,
absolutely amazing.
Was it you that texted me that you didn't think it was possible to hate Thatcher more? Was that you that texted me that?
It might have been, because I remember watching it and I remember I couldn't I was sitting there and I was like, hang on, right? This is a TV show where somebody is portraying Thatcher, and I've never in my life I watched Game of Thrones and I hated Joffrey Baratheon, but I mean you're one playing and as well the fact that Thatcher was a real person and all that, but
and a real wagon.
Yeah, but you just did my blood was boiling watching her. Like, she plays her so well, and even the way she treats her own children, like.
Exactly, yeah. And Mark was her favourite and all this bollocks. Yeah. Thatcher was a prick, and Gillian Anderson enhances that for her.
It's not very often that a female is referred to as. So when
equal here to all words.
When you call Maggie Thatcher a prick, I love that, to be perfectly fair.
Big thing there was I loved the corgis.
Yes, yeah.
The dogs in it, and this week on What's a Story podcast, we're going to be talking to a dog whisperer, dog trainer, and this is our interview with Mack from Good Boy Dog Training.
Mack, the dog genius, has now joined us. Mero, you've been working with Mack for a couple of weeks now with your beautiful Sugsy. So, right, give us your side of it then. How did you find Mack, and what have you been doing?
Well, I first got in touch with Mack because my dog is a Hungarian Vizsla who's just full of energy.
Right, hang on. Get the plug in early. How did you get in touch with him?
Oh, I got in touch with him by going on his Instagram, goodboy_dog training.
Lovely.
I actually got in touch with him through Lindsay, good friends of the show, Lindsay and Austin.
Lindsay?
Danny always pretends that he hates Lindsay. Lindsay was actually a host of this show, Mac, in the early days.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I've never heard of her.
Danny still can't take it that she left us.
So, abandoned us.
So I got in touch with Mac because I wanted assistance with Sugsy walking by my side, because he was just dragging, and like Mac described, he's dragging because he can't wait to go to where he thinks he's going and stuff like that. So gave me great guidance, and I suppose the homework that Mac gave me, I put into play straight away, and I was getting results within a day, like proper results. And then I was actually skipping some stages of the homework he gave me because the results were so advanced. In terms of Mac was saying, do this distance, then do this distance. But I was actually doing longer because Suggsy was responding very well. Now, it was hard because I wanted Suggsy to walk by my side, but it's hard to do that. It's hard to teach that because rewarding the dog and pushing the chair and holding the lead, it was an absolute mindfuck trying to do that. So I actually wasn't always rewarding Suggsy. It was just I was rewarding him with pets and saying goodbye and stuff like that. But Mack had said that the Vizsla itself are very, very intelligent, and yeah, I felt he came on brilliant. And now, like, while he still drags, he corrects. I can correct him easily. And my dad notices. My dad takes him for the walk in the mornings, and he notices as well. Like, it's almost like he's aware of the wheelchair now as well, and that he's scared that I might run him over.
Mac, when did you start Good Boy dog training? How long are you in the game?
So I actually only started it. I actually haven't had the company for that long. I mean, I've been training dogs for ages, but it was always kind of on the side. Like, it was very much, I'd have my dogs walking around or doing obedience something, and then somebody would come up and say, "Hey, would you do that with my dog?" So I just take their number and then I did it for free for ages. Then I was like, oh, maybe I should start charging. And then it wasn't until, when was it? Maybe, I'm just trying to think, sorry, July. I think I set it up in maybe June. I set up an Instagram page. So I'd been doing it a good bit before that, for a long time. And then that was when I kind of took the plunge to like set up a company and set up like social media and stuff and start doing it that way. And I follow like a lot of trainers in the States and essentially just saw what was working like on Instagram and stuff and what people were kind of responding to. So I was like, I'm just going to start doing that, because I don't see anyone else in Ireland doing it. And in terms of a country, with some things we're very, very progressive, but with other things we're still very far behind. So in terms of dog training, like, a lot of people don't really understand any kind of canine psychology or behavior. So I just was like, I want to make this like accessible. And it was also partly because I was sick of seeing dogs.
There's one in the background. I'm not sure you can hear them.
She wants to come on. It was also mainly because I was sick of seeing dogs struggling for very simple fixes, like little things like pulling on the lead or just small things or recall, and people were getting really upset about it. And I was just like, this isn't that difficult of a thing if I can kind of unpack it in a kind of easy to navigate way,
Yeah. And then, so it's kind of basic obedience training, and then do you do kind of more advanced stuff for people as well? Like, you do stuff for show dogs and that kind of thing as well, or?
No, not really. Like, so I'm really into personally, like, I'm really into working dogs and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
There's a sport, this is going to be boring for most people, but there's a sport called IGP, which is essentially a bite sport. So within that, you have like obedience, tracking, and protection, and I'm really into that. That's just like a hobby I really like. But as in, I work with like clubs and stuff like that, but not so much clients. But in terms of like what I do, it's whatever the person wants, So a lot of it can be behavior modification. Sometimes people get a dog from a rescue that for the first day or two, the dog's fine. And then all of a sudden the dog starts trying to like kill their grandmother or something. So then I'm like, all right, we've got a bit of work to do. Or it could literally just be like a lot of puppies at the minute, of course, with COVID and stuff, a lot of people getting puppies. So a lot of that is just setting the dog up for success. And then other people just want a good recall, or the dog can walk nicely. So it's kind of anything,
Yeah.
And is every kind of like, over the years I've often met dog owners where you go to their house and you say, "Oh, jeez," and they'll say, "Oh God, I love your dog," and you start petting them, and they'll point out the flaws of the dog, and the dog might be 6 or 7 or whatever. Is there a lost cause to dogs, or are all dogs, no matter what age or no matter what personality trait or whatever, are they all kind of fixable?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I mean, the whole like old dogs can't learn new tricks thing is complete bullshit. Because a lot of it is mindset, and dogs are the most adaptable animal that there is, in terms of maybe cohabitating with another animal. Like dogs get along with cats and can get along with a monkey or anything. Do you know what I mean? So you can train them to just about do everything. Now, if there are obviously certain genetic parameters within that, so you're not going to teach a Bichon to be a protection dog, but if a dog has been reactive for 6 years, you can definitely manage it and stop it essentially being reactive. 100%. Like there's no kind of age limit. Like unless like, and again, I don't like saying everything is fixable, and I don't like talking about it in that kind of linear fashion. But people always message me and say, "Oh, my dog's 7. Is it too late?" Like, no way. Like, if your dog's been pulling you for 7 years, could probably stop pulling you in about 20 minutes, you know. But it's if they have to keep doing it, you know, because 7 years of the dog's life, the relationship with the person is maybe slightly skewed. You know, so that's the hard bit. The hard bit, the dog can do it. It's just can the person do it? You know?
Yeah.
So you could fix something like that in 20 minutes.
Probably. Like it's like walking on the lead and stuff is in. I could do it in 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And I don't want to sound cocky in that sense. I'm not saying, okay, you've 20 minutes with every dog, teach it not to pull. Like the majority of dogs, it's quite a simple. You just do a few exercises and then build it. But I find the challenging thing is getting the owner to be consistent, because I think in this country, I've noticed especially, and I have dog trainer friends in the States and stuff, this country, we treat dog training as a chore almost, as in like, oh, I have to go out and do this thing. Whether I know people in the States which do have pets and do really advanced obedience stuff just because they enjoy it, you know? So in turn, you get a better life and a better relationship with the dog, instead of this kind of like, oh, I have to go walk up and down a road with a dog. People just want the finished product without maybe wanting to put the work in. But when you put the work in, that's the enjoyable bit, you know, for me.
So is there an element of you having to train the human as well as the dog then?
I'd say that's what it is 90% of the time.
Really? Jesus.
Yeah, 90, like as in I'll go to people and they'll say, oh, my dog's really reactive to dogs, right? And I'll say, okay, and maybe I'll get one of my dogs or whatever, and I'll bring it to the session. And I'll say, okay, walk past my dog. They walk past my dog, and the dog like loses it, right? And so I take the lead. Then I take the lead, and I walk past, and the dog doesn't do anything. Because what's happening is the person is so scared, right? Or maybe nervous. And they've every right to be. Like, I'm not kind of shitting on them. Like, you've every right to be nervous. You don't want your dog to hurt another dog or something. But they preempt the dog's reaction, right? So straight away they go stiff, and then they wrap the lead around their hand. So the dog, before the dog has even made a decision, the dog goes, right, whoever here isn't in control of the situation, I'm making a decision, right? So the dog goes, I'm gone, I'm reacting. Because straight away the person sees the other dog and goes, oh shit, and gets all tense and pulls the lead really tight, wraps around their hand and starts panicking. So dog picks up on that straight away, straight away. But when you're relaxed, then your dog turns around and goes, okay, well, if you're relaxed, I'm relaxed. If you're anxious, how the hell am I not going to be anxious?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because they feel everything through that lead. Like that lead is your communication system. Like that's all it is. Like your voice is not directional, just that lead. So if you put pressure on that lead, you're telling your dog something. And so it's just important if you do have a reactive dog, that what messages you're giving it, you know.
Do harnesses make a difference? I've heard some people say never put a harness on a dog, and then like, I mean, I've 3 that I put the harness on, and I love them. But I have heard people say, Jesus, no, a harness is the worst thing you could do if you're trying to get them to behave more on the lead.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's a good question. I'll go off on a tangent here quickly, right?
That's fine. You go on all the tangents you want.
And answer your question. So dog training is incredibly politicized. Like so much so that like both sides of the spectrum are at war, right? Both sides of the spectrum being like kind of force-free, positive-only trainers, okay? And then balance trainers. So trainers that use positive reinforcement, but maybe also use corrections, okay? Mm-hmm. So ultimately, both want what's best for the dog, and both are as stubborn as each other, in my opinion, right? You get positive-only trainers that like stick their heels in and will make Facebook groups about balance trainers because the person didn't walk the dog in a harness and they think it's cruel. So it's very tribal and very, very toxic. It's a very toxic world, actually. And a lot of people don't know that until you're in it. And then you're getting messages from other trainers and other people kind of going, why'd you do that? That's cruel, blah, blah, blah. It's just so the reason why I say that is where this whole essentially harness generation has kind of spawned from in the last, I don't know, maybe 6-7 years, that all dogs now wear harnesses, all of them. Like I rarely see a dog on a collar anymore. And look, I think whatever the tool is, whether it's the collar or the harness, if that works for that individual dog, that's all that matters. You know, a lot of the times harnesses, in my opinion and in my experience, encourage pulling, because you're trying to control the strongest part of the dog, which is their chest. And while you think you might be having more control, you actually don't, because if you control the head of the dog, you control their whole body, as opposed to trying to control the chest, where you're kind of just moving a big object around. You know? And so it really, to answer your question in a not so kind of thorough answer, it really depends on the dog. Like I know my dog, I have a boxer. I know if I walk him on the harness, like he knows heel, I can tell him to heel, he'll walk nicely, but he'll also pull me if I let him. Do you know what I mean? Like I know for a fact he does way better on a collar than a harness. But then I'll use a harness if I go for a run or if I'm up in the mountains or something like that.
Yeah. It's mad. Like I know you're saying it's so politicized. I love that because it's. I don't know. I'm coming from completely ignorant to the dog training world, but I'm kind of like I love the idea of these kind of almost like little wars taken between the two.
Yeah, there's a sitcom in there. Like there's definitely a sitcom in there.
It's crazy. Like it really is crazy. The only thing I can equate it to is like left versus right in terms of politics.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it is. And like either side of both is bad. Do you know what I mean? Like way too far right, we're bad. Way too far left, we're like, come on. So you need balance, I think, in everything. Like, look, I'm a lefty, but I'm not like so far left that I'm offended by everything. Do you know what I mean? Like you either side of the spectrum. So only force free. Like you have people now that don't even want to put leads on their dogs, right? Like, that's how far bad it gets on one side. Because they want to give their dog the option if the dog wants to go the direction of the person, right? So that's like an example. That's like an anecdotal example of like the worst side of it, you know. And then also on the flip side, I get it. You have balanced trainers that are maybe 90% aversive and 10 for their positive reinforcement is just good boy, and the rest of the time they're yanking on the dog and punishing the dog, which isn't good either, you know. So I where I lie is I don't really label myself as either. Like dogs learn through positive reinforcement, like that's a fact, and any good trainer will tell you that. Yeah. But I just tailor it to the individual dog. Like there's no point me turning around and saying, oh, I only use positive reinforcement, because what if that doesn't work? Then where do I go? You know?
Yeah. You mentioned there a couple of minutes ago, and I'm going to be selfish and hog some of the airtime to ask about stuff that I've encountered with the three with members of the wolf pack here. So you said about dogs reacting to other dogs, right? So essentially what we have, we've three huskies. One was the mother of the two pups. It's a brother and sister. Now we bought straight up. We bought the boy, Lupo, and he's a big lump of a lovable beast of a dog. Then we have Callie, who's the mom. She's 7, and then Polly, who's Lupo's sister. We rescued the mom and Polly, right? Mm-hmm. To make it kind of overly complicated, I suppose, we had Lupo and Callie, the pup and the mom, for about a year before we took Polly as well. We then rescued Polly as well and brought her in. They all get on great. They're all fine, except when there's food involved. Yeah. Callie, the mom, there's no problem at all. She never is involved in any of the squabbles. She just cool as a cucumber. She actually lies down eating her food. I've never seen a dog do that, apparently, but yeah, she does. But Lupo and Polly, the brother and sister, they will fight sometimes over food. Usually speaking, Lupo tries to veer in to take Polly's food. I presume it's some sort of dominance thing, or else I'm gonna sound like just a bit of a twat saying that. But I presume that's what it is. It's him almost saying to her like, I'm in charge. But sometimes they do have a bit of a squabble.
Or he could just want her food. Like,
well, he is a hunger. Fair to him. He's the most food motivated dog I've ever seen in my life. Like,
yeah. I mean, like I don't know the dogs, but my initial thing would just be, how old are they? The brother and sister?
They'll be 3 in February.
And do you feed them all at the same time?
Yeah.
So do you like put the 3 bowls down at the same time, and then if one of them finishes earlier, he might try to go over to the other one or something?
Sometimes he hasn't even finished his own food. He just thinks what's in her bowl might be nicer. So he'll eat a bit of his, and then he'll walk over, and they'll have a little snarling contest. And then we'll be like, all right, enough, and we'll click, and that kind of thing. But
yeah. Well, I mean, I can just tell you what I would do, in those situations is I would just be hand feeding the dogs. So if you feed, say, what time do you feed them breakfast usually?
Usually between 7:30 and 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. So what I would do is the oldest dog would get fed first. Maybe that dog in a different room out of the bowl. It depends. Or again, hand fed. And then I would just take the dog outside and I just do some really basic obedience and hand feed them all their meals. So a couple of things happens there. One, the food comes directly through you, right? So you get elevated in the dog's world because when you hand the dog a piece of food, that's a transaction. Okay. So if you tell the dog to sit and give them a piece of food, boom, you're paying your dog, right, with something of values, and it's coming directly from you. When you pop it down on the floor, the dog doesn't know you went to the shop and bought that food. That's just kind of there, you know? The initial association is there that you put it down and then the dog sits and then goes and eats it. But it's still out of the bowl. It's not coming directly from you. Do you know what I mean? So what can happen is then we can kind of get into the realm of maybe some resource guarding. And if that's always the issue, I just say, well, we're not going to give the dog resources to guard. But I think I always tell people, especially people with puppies, to hand feed, but try it. I mean, try it for a few weeks and see. You'll probably notice the difference, because if it does nothing else, it'll just make the relationship with you and the dogs better. And just do it at different times, you know, just one at a time, just so there's a bit of a structure and a bit of order. And with that, the dog's working for the food too. Then, you know,
would that employ, or like would a similar thing then be worth doing? So it sometimes extends as well to their toys. So if say Polly has picked up a particular toy, Lupo will have no interest in the toys at all until he sees her taking the toy away, and he's like, "That's the one I wanted," and he'll go after her.
Yeah. I would. So again, I do the same thing. The dog only gets a toy when I'm playing with the dog. Okay. So for example, one of my dogs is 2, right? Yeah. He's had the same tug since he was 8 weeks. And he will run through a glass wall for that tug, because he only gets it when I play with him, right? So he might only get that for 20 minutes at a time, and then I take it away and it's gone. He doesn't have access to it. So when I get it out, I have a lot of motivation. Yeah, so everything becomes a lot easier. So I don't want to get into the realms of just giving him a toy and say, okay, go entertain yourself, man. I want to be playing me and you. So I'd be doing the same. If Lupo or one of the other dogs or whatever, if you have a toy, it's like, right, let's go to the garden. Let's play for 20 minutes with one of you. Leave them inside. It's always important, if you have like a multi-dog household, to spend time individually. Do you know what I mean? Like, just go for a walk with one of the dogs, or just go play fetch with one of the dogs, or just do something with one of the dogs, like as much as you can.
I didn't know that.
They get a bit of you time.
We've tried that. We tried walking them individually before, and there was riots in the house with the 2 left behind. Absolute riots. I'd say the neighbours were calling the guards. One other neighbour didn't know if the house was going to survive. It was mayhem. So it's Jesus.
So what would you do there then, Mac, if the other 2 are sulking away that they're not going out?
I mean, you have to think like context is important there, because like the dogs for 2 years have been doing the same routine, right? So when you do change that routine, there's going to be protest, you know? I just do it short first. I just go short walks on their own. And I'm not saying you have to do it every day, but I think it's important, especially if you have brother and sister dogs, like as in two siblings. It's really important to like separate them at times, because you can have a thing called littermate syndrome, which is where the two dogs bond to each other more than the person, right? More than the human, because the two dogs are just joined together since day one, essentially. So they become very, very kind of into each other and don't really care about the person. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't sound like you have that situation. I think you'd know if you had that situation. But like, I have two dogs. Sometimes I'll just take one dog out for a walk and just like, hey, just me and you, dude. And then sometimes I'll take both of them, but it just depends. Like, I try do a little bit on their own every day. I'd start that way. I'd just take one of them to the garden at a time, do 5 sits in a row and feed them that way, and then build it up, you know?
Because we would now, we'd give them kind of individual, but then we're also devils for getting a dose of the guilt, where if we're giving one attention and the other one is kind of on the other side of the room, giving you that look of like, well, I'm getting no scratches, I'm not getting my belly rubbed. We'll go and be like, all right, come on then, that kind of thing. But like, what a lot of what you're saying there is like, I don't think it's that what did you say it was called? Litter mate syndrome, did you say it was called?
I don't think, I think you know.
But they do have this weird kind of separation thing. So even, for example, right, so we bring them to the groomer, and the groomer will do kind of like the take all 3 of them in, but do 2 of them at a time kind of thing. So while the other 2 are getting groomed, say Lupo will be in the bed or in the cage, basically crying because he's not the one on the table with them. So there is a kind of separation thing, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's mad. Like, I think I'll try that, especially the hand feeding thing. That's interesting. I'll definitely give that a bash.
I think you'll have success with that. Or do they have crates?
No, they were crate trained, but we don't bother now. They're fairly good in terms of there's no major need. They have their bed, they have their spots. That's kind of like, that's your spot. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, we didn't bother with the crates once they got a bit bigger. We said
crate training has become a phenomenon, hasn't it, Mack? I don't ever remember that. Say as a teenager growing up with friends who had dogs, so I don't ever remember them having crates. But now, and over the last 5 or 6 years, I've seen them everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, it's a good thing. Dogs have different wants and needs than people, you know. And it's important that everyone there's we lost. Did we lose Graham there?
No, sometimes he just freezes, but he's still there.
Okay, no worries. So I can hear you, no problem. So yeah, I think with crates, what you're doing with a crate is you're giving your dog kind of a safe place, you know, and you're giving them somewhere where they can switch off, and you're giving them structure, and dogs thrive on structure, and structure equals happiness a lot of the times. When a dog doesn't have a crate, especially a puppy, not so much an older dog, but a puppy, like an 8-week-old puppy, they're constantly living in kind of this tornado of decision making. So they constantly fuck up, you know, and that's not their fault. They're just puppies. They don't know we don't want them to pee on the rug or whatever, but they constantly make choices which inadvertently will make us upset, and then we get annoyed, and it's a whole thing. So when you crate them, you give them that time to switch off. You know they're safe. They can't chew your nice chair or something, and they have a place to shut off. So then when you get them out of the crate, your time is super productive. But yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge when someone says to me that they don't want a crate, you know, and they have like an 8-week-old puppy. I'm just like, it's gonna be tougher, you know. I know, Graham, you're crateless. But Suggsy had an accident with the crates. That's kind of different, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Suggsy tried to escape the crate and out from the roof. And
do you think that's just the Ballybracken on me? Thought he was in prison. Just
probably, but he tried to escape it, and his neck got caught in it, and it was like he was hanging. So my mom, I was in the room working, and my mom went hysterical. And I was thinking, geez, the dog couldn't be attacking her that bad. We only have him 2 weeks. So I went out, and he managed to, I think with my mom, gave him some lift. He got himself out of it, but he was basically hanging from the crate for a period of time. And then that Saturday, then my dad had him in the crate and locked it. And my dad was locking it to clean the kitchen floor. And he just absolutely went berserk. So he was scared. He was actually scared of the crate after that. And we had him in the crate, and what you're saying there in terms of safe place, I can certainly we had him in a crate, I'd say, for about 3 or 4 weeks, in terms of he was sleeping in it all the time, but we never really shut the door, but he knew that was his area to sleep, or if he got a treat, he would get the treat and he'd leg it to his crate. And he does that with his bed now. He gets a treat and he goes straight to his bed. We fill his Kong and he'll go straight to his bed to enjoy it. So
that's good.
Yeah. I'll just go to a couple of questions.
Yes. Yeah.
Unless Danny wants to hog the time.
No. We'll jump into some of the questions there. I feel like I've just robbed a load of info from Mack there, just
no
selfishly. It's just the bit where we have to reveal you can't actually read, Mero, so this is gonna be awkward.
Yeah. How do you stop your dog from eating poo?
Just pick it up before they get to it. I mean, that's what I do. I don't know. Usually they do it. It's usually a nutritional thing when they do it. Usually they're lacking a nutrient. I am in no way a qualified nutritionist, so I don't want to be held accountable from that. But from friends that are nutritionists and people that I know, that's usually what it is. So again, that's just like a management situation. Like, just don't leave poo around your garden and your dog's not going to have a chance to eat it.
Can I just ask a follow up to that before we go on to the next one? Should, like, are generic dog food brands, I know you're not a nutritionist in that, but just like kind of generally speaking, are generic dog food brands would there be enough nutrition in that, or should people look to the specific, I need to get a particular type of food if I have a particular type of dog?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And so I feed and again, it depends on the food. Like, like if you get a bag of Skittles, like, chances are it's not going to be the most healthy option for you. So it really depends. I feed my dogs raw food. So what that means is raw meat, like fish, raw chicken, raw beef, raw turkey, duck, all that stuff. And that comes pre-made then, and it'll be mixed with some vegetables and maybe some fruit and stuff. So when the dogs are on a raw diet, they get everything they need. There's no waste, right? So they only kind of poo once a day, max twice a day, because they're using it all and there's no excess. So that if anybody was ever asking me for nutritional advice, I'm just raw all the way, because it cleared up all my dog's allergies, gave them a shiny coat, and neither of the dogs, touch wood, have ever had any kind of health issues.
Cool.
Okay. Where is this one? How do you? This is a long one. How do you train a dog to be okay on his own in an apartment with no upstairs? So want to leave while working from home and gradually be able to leave her alone, as I haven't left for 2 months. She's fine when left in the car, barks non-stop when in the crate during the day, but fine in it at night. Is it okay to leave them sitting down during the day alone?
Yeah, I mean, that's just separation anxiety. So separation anxiety is literally what it sounds like. The person goes away and the dog gets anxious. That happens for a few different reasons. Kind of all puppies go through this, but we can really aid to it. So one thing I'd say is ignore your dog when you leave the house. If you know you leave the house at 11 a.m., make sure you're ready at 10:30. Make sure your dog is in the crate, nice and chilled. And when you leave, have your jacket on, have your shoes on, and just walk out. Look back at your dog. Don't tell them where you're going. Don't tell them they're a good boy. Just walk out. And then when you come home, you do the same. You put your shopping away, you take your shoes off, you do all that, and you ignore the dog. Then you let them out of the crate, let them jump on you, be excited, ignore it until they're calm, and then you can give affection. If you start telling the dog where you're going and bring up the energy level, you bring up the energy level and then you slam the door and walk out. So you're left with a dog that goes from essentially like a 2 to a 10 and then starts getting anxious. And then just as that dog calms down, we come back in the door and go, oh my God, you're the best dog in the world. This dog's like, oh my God, thank God you're back. So the dog gets rewarded for you just coming home. And so we inadvertently teach the dog to miss us. So I've never ever in my life had separation anxiety with a dog, and I've had rescue dogs and stuff because leaving isn't an event. It's just part of life. I leave sometimes and then I come home sometimes. Nothing happens. It's not a big ordeal. I'd say also just feed your dog in the crate. Make sure they do what Graham said he was doing. Every time the dog goes into the crate, they get a treat. And always reward with the dog when they go in, and just close the door and let the dog kind of figure it out. They'll eventually be calm, and once they're calm, they can be let out.
I think some of the issues, though, Mac, would I be right in saying that people like you given advice for that, and we could have 10 listeners that have that issue in terms of that question. It's about persevering, isn't it? I think a lot of the 100%. Owners might give it a day or two, and because it hasn't clicked, they give up. So I think owners kind of look for a time frame, don't they? And it's like, if it's not in the time frame that suits them, they might give up and say, "Oh, that didn't work."
Listen, man, like if I could print that out and post it on the side of my truck, I would, because it's not linear. You're dealing with an animal. There's no people always message me and say, how long does it take to get my dog to stop pulling on the lead, or how long does it take to get my dog to stop jumping? And I always say, and I come across quite rude, because I'm always like, it depends how much you care. How much work do you want to do? Do you want to do it 5 times a day for 5 minutes, or do you only want to do it once a week? Or do you really want to be consistent? Like, if you're dedicated and you're consistent and persistent and patient, you'll eventually get the results, because all dog training is an accumulation of little successes. So when I was saying to Graham, I was teaching him to walk with Sugsy next to the chair and just do short turnabouts and stuff. As that gets more ingrained in the dog, that's only a small success, but that builds. All these small successes build and create the overall bigger picture of kind of what the dog will be. Dog training never stops. Like, I have a 6-year-old dog and a 2-year-old dog, and I constantly reinforce on walks. I constantly bring food on walks, and I'm constantly reinforcing the right behavior, because it's like going to the gym or something. You can't expect to get a 6-pack if you go to the gym once every 6 months, and you have to work at it. So it's the exact same thing. It's just being consistent. And at puppies, puppyhood is kind of not that long of a time either. It's only 12 months. So, and if you can be patient for even 3-4 of those months, you're good to go.
Yeah, it feels fitting at that point to say, if you are looking to go to a gym, we'd highly recommend the Lab, and you can check out Lindsay, Austin, and Damo down there.
I mean, they'll get you a good 6-pack.
True. One that I was sent to do, because you've mentioned rescue dogs as well. This person is having trouble with the rescue. They've had her for a year, and she's fine when you let her outside. She'll do her business, but she doesn't tell you when she needs to do her business. Is there a way to help progress that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I would just go back to absolute basics, pretend like it is a puppy, and constantly reward when the dog goes. It's important with any kind of toilet training, whether it's a 2-year-old dog or an 8-week-old dog, is that you're rewarding instantly. A dog's association time is 1.2 seconds. So if your dog pees and you're trying to reward that, you can't go inside and get a treat and then give it to them. You have to be instant. So I would just constantly be reinforcing the good behavior of the dog peeing and pooing outside and rewarding, and just keep taking the dog out every couple of hours. And then over time, it becomes very clear for the dog, because they say, right, even if I don't need to go, I'm going to start heading out there anyway, because that's where I get paid. That's where the good stuff happens. So the dog starts choosing to go outside, and then starts choosing to go to the toilet outside. That's just what I do. It just makes it, you give the dog 2 options. You pee inside, nothing happens. You go outside, you go outside, you get paid.
So bring it back to basics then, back to as if you're the toilet training a pup.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Real. Mero, I think your video was frozen, but you're still there, are you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you all right, but just I don't know.
Video, this happens.
You have a very concerned face on you, at least on my screen anyway.
How much exercise does a 10-year-old Westie need?
10-year-old?
10-year-old, yeah.
I honestly don't know. Like, it really depends on the dog. It depends on the health of the dog, if the joints are good, if it's healthy. I mean, I wouldn't, with these kind of things, it's really dog dependent. I really can't say 10 minutes, because you might have a really healthy, energetic 10-year-old dog that needs an hour. So, I mean, I just wouldn't be taking it on bike rides and really long running around, but walk's not really high impact, you know. I wouldn't worry too much about a walk. Just running is kind of the high impact activity there.
I have 2 male French bulldogs. One keeps humping the other. What does this mean?
It means it's probably just overstimulation. The dog's just overexcited. Humping usually is just kind of a product of overstimulation. So your dog is either maybe a little bit frustrated or overstimulated and wants to kind of not. I don't want to say get a release because he's not doing it for.
Well, he's also asking.
Purposes.
He's also asking if this me and my dog is gay.
No. No, there's unfortunately in the dog world that's not how it works. It just means your dog is like excited and wants to play and maybe a bit over. Sometimes you'll see my smaller dog and it's hilarious. He's a male. I have 2 male dogs. Will hump my small dog. He's a Boston Terrier. He's 6 kilos, and he'll hump my 40-kilo boxer, and he'll just go at his leg. But that's because they've been playing for some time, you know. So it's like when the play goes to the next level, and it just comes out in that way.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't worry.
I don't think when lockdown's over, I don't think you'll be able to claim overstimulated as an excuse for any of your antics. Up in the eye go in, all right? So you just keep behaving.
My puppy does not stop. My puppy does not stop biting. When does this end? How can it stop? God, somebody English in these questions, folks.
Yeah, you're not going to stop a puppy biting. You can manage it. They're teething. You know, they start teething pretty badly around 14 weeks, and it's kind of the equivalent to a toddler sucking their thumb. Like their literally teeth are falling out, and they're getting new teeth. It is a painful process. Their gums are inflamed. They're bloody. They're losing teeth daily. So you need to give them a release, right? So frozen carrots are really good. And also, just in your local pet shop, get a deer antler. It's like kind of like it looks like a piece of dried wood, so it doesn't smell. You can put it in the house. They're great, and if you put it in the freezer as well, it'll numb the gums a bit, and that'll keep your puppy going for hours. And then if it's when you're interacting and playing and stuff, just remove the dog from the situation, or redirect it onto a something appropriate like a toy.
So when does the teething process end then? Is it the end of 12 months or?
No, they should have all their teeth by about 8 months. Yeah. Right. By 8 months. So dogs go through kind of 2 phases of teething, but about 8-9 months they should have all their teeth. But it can be a longer process for some. Some dogs get it really bad. And I feel bad for them because people are like, oh, it's so annoying. But I'm like, you got to give the dog an outlet. You know, they need to gnaw on something. So that's why frozen carrots, deer antlers are my go-to, and you should give them to your dog in the crate.
Cool.
I love watching Suggsy eating carrots now. It fascinates me. He has them like settled in his 2 paws, and he's just chunking away. But you can see he's actually directing it to a certain area of his gum.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's fascinating,
funny, isn't it? Yeah. It is.
Next question there is: are e-collars humane?
Yeah.
So what's e-collar? What's e-collars?
So an e-collar is an electronic collar, right? So contrary to popular belief, it is not a shock collar. I am very opposed to shock collars, and very opposed to people using them without the correct knowledge, skill set, or even the correct tool. So an e-collar, I have an e-collar for Herbie, and I use it only for recall, right? I don't know if you know a TENS machine, but it provides a stimulation, right? And it's used in a very positive way. So again, back to Ireland being very backward, like these are very expensive units. They're about like €300-400. So they're not something that just some kind of doofus wants to go and harm their dog. They're not going to spend money on this. You can get units that are shock collars. They're about 50 quid. And I'd say run for the hills if you see this. But the good units are really humane, really good, but you have to know what you're doing with them. like any tool, they can be abused. A leash can be abused. Like if you want to abuse an animal, you don't need a tool to do it. You can use your shoe, you know? So yeah, you'll always get idiots. I think there should be some regulation around the tool. I think you should have to do some kind of course. But I know how to use them. And you just, the kind of proof is in the dog. Anybody I've helped with them, or you can look at my dog and look at his tail, and he's a happy dog. It's essentially your off-leash communication tool. So if I'm hiking, so you condition your dog to it, you start on very low levels. So it's literally the dog, you're teaching a dog a language, and that language is the stimulation. So when that dog feels the stimulation, they have to come to you, right? So if I let my dog off the lead and I'm hiking, I know 100 times out of 100 times I can get my dog back. And that's very important, because I could have the best recall in the world, but if a deer comes around the corner up in the Wicklow Mountains or something, I don't want to take the chance of maybe will my dog go for him or will he not, you know? Or if there's a squirrel on the road and my dog wants to run off. And because dogs are animals at the end of the day, and I care too much about him to even think about endangering his life, you know? So when you have an e-collar on and your dog knows what it is and you've taught it well, it's very positive, and it's just another training tool. And not all dogs need them, but some dogs do excellently. I know Austin has one for Ori, his dog, and I've one for mine. I know a few other people with them, and if they're using the right way, they're probably one of the best tools there is.
So say, Mac, say with our current situation with Suggsy, now I know with he's relentless with my mother, like with the ankles and biting away during cooking times. Would an e-collar, if that was persistent and nothing was working, would an e-collar be suitable for a situation like that?
You could. I personally don't use it for really corrective purposes. So other trainers, like trainers I really look up to, will use it for that. So once the dog has been conditioned to the e-collar and they know what the stimulation means, then you can use it for corrections and kind of stop unwanted behaviors pretty quickly. But me and kind of my methodology, that's just not the way I do it. I'm not against that. It can work really well, but I'd much rather kind of take maybe a different approach than reverting to e-collar to stop behaviors. I use e-collar only really for recall. Sometimes I'll use it for a heel on a walk. If the dog gets ahead, I'll give him a little tap on it. And all it is a tap on the shoulder. Like, you can be in my house and you'll press and my dog will just look back at me. Like, it's not like you shock him and he jumps and hides. Like, I think we just have this idea, like we play into we kind of set it up when people talk about those collars and say, oh, like shock collars, you know, like straight away you have an opinion about it. When you hear shock collar and dog, you think of a dog being electrocuted, instead of actually, no, this is like, we use technology in every aspect of our life. Why are we not using it with dogs? You know, we've progressed so much. There's units out there that use incredible technology. Like, if it can help and work, like, let's use that, you know, let's use everything we have. We're in the 21st century. That's what progression is. You know?
Absolutely.
One of the questions that we have here as well, and just again, rescue related, was, hang on, I'll just bring it up. This person says that they have a rescue who gets on great with everyone in the house, but there's one family member who the dog is terrified of. They've never abused them. They've never done anything. They spend time trying to get the dog to like them, but for whatever reason, the dog just runs and cowers under the table or behind a chair or anywhere that person can't reach them. Is there anything we can do beyond trying to spend more time with the dog that could help this situation?
That's interesting. I presume it's probably maybe a different sex to the other people in the house, like as in the person the dog's scared of could maybe be a man, and sometimes that happens with dogs. They kind of differentiate sex, or it could be a woman. And what I would do is I would not be forcing the dog to like him or her at all. I would just let the dog do its thing, and over time, the more the dog sees that person isn't a threat and sees that person is part of the family and that person's sticking around, it'll become more comfortable. And the worst thing that person can do is kind of get their hand in the dog's face and say like, hey, like I'm fine, take some food from me and stuff, because look, if you're scared of spiders, then someone sticks a spider in your face, it's going to kind of confirm your fear.
Yeah.
So like, I have no problem with a spider if it's across the room, but if it's in front of me, I'll probably move. So it's the same. So what the person could probably do is take the dog's food and maybe throw it on the ground in front of them. And it's important not to let them take it from the hand, because then you create conflict in the dog. So because the dog wants the food, but maybe emotionally and behaviorally doesn't want to actually go to the person. So you create conflict there. So it's much better just throwing the food away from you. So it's coming from you, but it's onto the floor, and then just don't force those things. Like let like a nice systematic desensitization is good. Just over time, very, very slowly, the dog will start just go for walks and let the other person hold the lead. Let the person the dog's care of just walk beside the dog. Play is a huge one. Play tug, play fetch, play as much as you can, and that'll start to open the dog up a bit.
Is there is there something in it as well about then recognizing dogs' kind of body language and how they behave in scenarios? Like you mentioned it when you were talking about your dog, like look at his tail and you'll see that like he's a happy dog, that kind of thing. Like recognizing those little small things that like some stuff everyone knows, kind of tail wagging or whatever, everyone just thinks happy dog or whatever, but like how important is it to be able to spot your dog's body language to know, like, all right, no lads, don't get too close now. So in that scenario, if that dog is afraid of a family member, for example, and you're saying don't create a conflict.
That's a great question. It is important, and like the good thing about dogs is they kind of tell us everything with their bodies, especially tell us before it's going to happen. Like if you're unfortunate enough to get bitten by a dog, I'd say the signs have been there. You just didn't see the dog was telling you to back off, or the dog was telling you he was about to bite you. So it is important that you have a basic understanding of their body language. Like you always know when two dogs are going to fight. You can kind of see it if your dog's ever gone up to another dog or vice versa. There's kind of a bit of a standoff there. So it is important. Like, I mean, fear is the easiest one. Everyone kind of knows fear, like tail between the legs, dog low center of gravity, kind of crouching a little bit. That would be kind of extreme fear. But tail wagging as well, it means happy dog. But also dogs that are stimulated or aroused in any way will wag their tail, even if they're on defense or barking and stuff. They'll still wag their tail. And it actually boils down to even dogs that are maybe in defense drive, that are stimulated, their tails will actually wag, not always, but sometimes will wag a little bit more to the left instead of right the way across. So it might go more to the left and then back to the center instead of the full spectrum. So there's little things like that. Now every dog is different, but I know in defense sometimes that can happen.
Okay, cool. Good info there anyway, Mero, have you got any more? We've a few more minutes. I want to take up all of Mack's evening, although we could be here all night.
I'm fine,
Is there
You'll regret that, Mack. We'll be here at 11 o'clock still asking you questions. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Is there such thing as bad breeds?
Bad? What do you mean in terms of bad?
I think the question means...
Oh, sorry, that was a question. Sorry, I thought you were just asking that. Like as in breeds that are... Like, it really depends.
Like breeds that are banned from dog parks, I think.
Oh, did you say banned or bad?
Banned. No. Oh. What I meant was, is there such thing as bad breeds? As in, like, why are they banned from the dog park?
Okay, yeah. Like, so maybe breeds that like perhaps have the component to be maybe aggressive or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, look. Genetics is everything in dogs, right? Genetics, it's about 60% genetics, right? And then the rest is training, even more, sometimes 70% genetics. Genetics is everything. Genetics is everything with people too. But with dogs, it is really the jumping off point. And if you have a dog with good genetics and it's strong and genetically strong, your training is going to be a lot easier. If you have a dog with bad genetics, it's going to make it a lot harder, right? Just to contextualize that for you, like I was with a puppy the other day and that was 10 weeks, right? And it was scared to take food from the owner's hand. as in it wouldn't come out from under the table. At 10 weeks, that is not good, right? And that's not because the dog's ever had a bad experience. That's just poor genetics. That's because maybe the mother or the father wasn't a strong dog and was maybe a bit fearful. And so that's played through. So now that dog has a baseline of fear and a bit of kind of hesitancy towards people. So if that's not harnessed correctly, that gets very difficult. So when you get into your guarding breeds like Rottweilers and German Shepherds and stuff, they're very powerful dogs. And if you get an idiot with those dogs coupled with bad genetics, because usually if an idiot is getting one of these dogs for it to be aggressive, they're not doing their research. So they are getting a dog with maybe poor genetics. You do have kind of a disaster waiting to happen. Mainly not because that dog's aggressive, mainly because that dog's insecure, you know? And aggression is very, very rare, actually. It's usually always insecurity. But bad dogs, there's a reason why a German Shepherd is a German Shepherd and a Golden Retriever is a Golden Retriever. There is a difference. So it's this, I'm not for the banned breed law. It doesn't make sense to me. It hasn't been thought through. It's just a bunch of people that came up and said these dogs look scary, so we'll ban them. So I'm not for that law as such, but you can do a lot more damage with a Rottweiler than you can with a Golden Retriever or a Labrador. You just can. And it's not in how you raise them all the way. There are going to be certain genetic tendencies that will take over when that dog hits a year. When that dog fully matures and becomes a dog, then you'll see the genetics. And it doesn't matter how much training you do, unless you're a really skillful trainer, you'll be battling that. And it'll be an uphill battle, you know? But dogs like Staffies and all that, they're beautiful dogs. They're great dogs. I have no issues with them. They're really great dogs. I love, my next dog will probably be a Rottweiler. Like, I love Rottweilers. I love German Shepherds. And I love all of these dogs. It's just people usually have insecure Rottweilers or German Shepherds and they're lunging at the end of the lead. So someone goes, oh, look how aggressive that dog is. But really, that dog has just been failed by the owner. And the owner hasn't given that dog any direction. So that dog's terrified of other dogs and is reacting to get those other dogs to move, you know? And so, yeah, I mean, there are dogs, obviously, German Shepherds are one, Rottweilers, Akitas, and Pitbull, and have a kind of tarnished reputation. Part of that is because of maybe mainstream media. But again, part of that is because if you get a Lamborghini and you don't have a driver's license, it probably isn't going to go well, you know? It's kind of the same with these dogs. It is, you are dealing with more dog, you know? Like, give someone a dog who's, like, somebody who's never had a dog, you give them a Labrador and tell them to raise that dog. You give that same person a Rottweiler, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, definitely. Do your research, people. Do your research before you...
and don't buy a dog on how it looks, because chances are you'll get the wrong dog.
That's mad, isn't it? Because I know one of the things, and I know the whole adopt, don't shop and all that kind of thing, and well, they're positive messages. Like, sometimes people do, they have an affinity for a certain breed and whatever. So if you're doing it in a responsible way, I'm not opposed to kind of people buying a dog if it's done the right way. You know, buying it off Dundee in a car park, probably not a good option. But I think there's this thing about kind of designer breeds or dogs that are in fashion and that kind of thing, and people do have a bit of a tendency maybe to go with the fad or not do their research. And I think kind of some of the stuff you were talking about there definitely comes into that. There's irresponsible owners who think the dog will look good or they'll look good with the dog, and then that dog is going to suffer ultimately because it doesn't get the training or the time that it needs in order to be, you know, a good boy, essentially.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, it's mad how far it's all. I just want it's mad how far it's all come, because me and my mother were just talking this evening, and Suggsy was just messing about in the kitchen, and he was really good with her today. Like, he did. I don't think he went for her today. But she was just saying that when she was a kid and they had dogs were just like, in the local council estate, dogs were just riding everything and getting pregnant and then your neighbour had a
A
dog,
bit like the young ones in Ballybrack, Graham.
and you would just get a dog. You would just get a dog like one day randomly, because your neighbour's dog had a dog, and then when that dog grew up, like my mum was saying that we'd let the dog out of the house at 9 o'clock in the morning. He'd go for a ramble around the estates, and he'd be back looking for his dinner at 6 o'clock. He'd be outside the gate waiting. You know, it's mad how things have evolved to don't, what Danny was saying there. What did you say, Danny? Adopt, don't shop, and don't meet people in a car park, and it's
do your bit of research before you commit to.
But again, I'll yeah. I mean, also you'd say, Graham, like, I bet dogs back then were a hell of a lot better behaved than they are now.
Yeah, I think they were.
I think so. I don't think, because in a kind of, in maybe a way, maybe in an innocent way, they were treated like dogs, and they weren't anthropomorphized and like treated like babies. So the dog kind of had to gear up and be like, right, it's either do or die in this situation. I got to be a dog. Like, the best example is, you look at homeless people's dogs. They're always perfect. They're always so well behaved. Why? Because they don't know when their next meal's coming, and they literally have to. They kind of for this guy because the result is probably death. There's a road, there's buses. I'm in a city. Like, especially you go to any countries in Europe and you see homeless folks with dogs. The dogs are just no lead, walking around, following them everywhere, because their basic needs are essentially met in terms of exercise. And they have exercise, and they have a good relationship with the person. So I think back then, when your mum was talking about, you don't have half the problems you have now.
Yeah, it's mad. It's even like when we were talking about it, we were thinking about even like 10 years ago not 10 years ago, when I was a teenager in our estate, we named about 4 or 5 dogs. That you would just see roaming past your house. They'd stop maybe for a pet, and then they'd just walk away. And we named 4 or 5 character dogs that our estate, and in our estate everyone knew the dog, like, just because, and the dog wasn't walked. There was no fetch. There was just, they were let out. Dog behind me, Tiger, was just sitting outside his gate every day watching the cars go by. You don't get that anymore, and I don't know what point I'm trying to make. But I'm just rambling, saying it's mad how kind of regulated and pristine we've got with the whole process. Like, we picked up Sugsy from a car park in Leitrim. Now, the breeder was a one-time breeder, that he bred on a farm. Like, he owns a farm with his parents, and we couldn't go to the house because COVID and stuff like that. So sometimes I do like, Jesus, did we do the right thing in getting the dog? But like, Sugsy seems okay. He's a purebred breed, So it's just mad how more. And I do believe everything has to be regulated. I'm not trying to argue against that. I'm just saying it's just mad how everything is gone. I think there's probably too many dogs. Is there, Mack?
Yeah, I think there's too many dogs. Not that there's too many. I think too many people have the wrong dogs,
Right.
And people buy. This is going to sound controversial. Like, listen, I've had loads of rescue dogs before. So I've rescued dogs. I've bought dogs. I've been on waiting lists for dogs. So I've kind of done both sides. But dogs that come from good breeders, usually, this is going to sound like I'm being an asshole here, usually don't end up in rescues. Why? Because there's contracts. So the breeder says, you're contractually obliged to bring this dog back to me if in a year's time you decide you don't want it anymore. So it doesn't get done. Dogs that turn around, if I have a dog and then, Graham, you have a dog, I have a French bulldog and you have a French bulldog, we turn around and go, hey, look, pups are going for $3-4 a pop. Do you want to get them together? No health tests are done. Nobody knows if the dog might have a heart murmur, or maybe have hip dysplasia, or have a bad elbow or hip score or something like that. We pop the dogs together. We get puppies that all look cute at when they're born and stuff, look like they're fine. And then the genetics are shit because we don't know the lines. The dogs could actually probably end up being related. And then there's no contracts. It's just, this one's this color, so it's $5,000. That one's $6,000. That one's $2,000. And they're like, oh, it's great. And then people don't want the dogs anymore, and they let them go. Of course, there are situations where their rescues are filled with absolutely beautiful dogs. There are gems, and you can of course get a gem of a dog from bad breeding, but the majority of responsible breeders' dogs don't end up in those situations. Yeah, because the protocols are met.
It is. It's mad you're saying that, because I remember, like, when we were getting these dogs, I said, like, we went for the pup, Lupo, and kind of we met them, and we met Callie, the mom dog, while she was pregnant, and we kind of got to see how she interacts with other dogs and all that, and all those kind of little kind of things that you're saying, that, like, we knew the people that we were dealing with were responsible, because essentially they put us through, for want of a better term, an interview process before they agreed to let us purchase a pup off them. And then kind of we stayed in touch with them throughout everything, and then when it came time to get Lupo and one thing and the other, they essentially were in a point where kind of they're an elderly couple, and they have a number of dogs. They've been involved in shows and that kind of thing for years, and essentially they got to the point where they were like, look, Lupo's going to be the last pup to go. We don't really want to separate him from Callie. Would you guys like to take Callie as well and give her, a better life than kind of as a family pet, essentially, rather than kind of, but like you said, they made it very clear to us that if for whatever reason after 9 months, a year, whatever it is, we can't just abandon them, that, like, it's in the contract that you have to bring them back, that kind of thing. And it was like, because I remember at the time thinking, Jesus, I've never heard that before, but then I read about it, and it is quite normal from a good breeder kind of thing. So it's good to know that those practices are in place.
It should feel like you're jumping through hoops, it really should. And I think a lot of breeders too kind of make up waiting lists as well, to see if you turn around and say, yeah, there's a year waiting list, see what your response is. If you turn around and go, oh, forget it, like, grand, I just weeded you out. But if you're like, yeah, no problem, that's fine, I'm willing to wait, he's like, oh, okay, this person is willing to wait for the right dog. And if you are willing to wait for the right dog, it'll probably be the right dog. And like Sugsy's a great example. Like you're saying, Graham, like you did get him in a car park or whatever, but like from a breeder. But like, look, Sugsy's a great dog. He's not scared. He's not nervy. He's not a bag of nerves. I've met the dog. He's really nice. He's a very sweet temperament. He's also bloody gorgeous. So of course there are exceptions. Maybe in this situation it was a really good breeder. They just didn't want you coming to their house for COVID. So maybe you got lucky. Because you have a great dog, and kind of that's all that matters now. And like, you can get great dogs, but I think Ireland is a bit of a shit show for regulating breeding. Like you're allowed to have, I think, up to 200-300 bitches in essentially a breeding facility, which is a puppy farm.
Jesus,
and that's in the law. You're allowed to do that. It's crazy.
My God,
that's outrageous.
You can be
man.
making. There's a family I think they're in Wexford or Tipperary, one of the two, right? They're making over £1 million a year in puppies.
What?
Over
Jesus Christ.
They've 300 bitches in the facility, right? 300. It is obscene numbers we're talking about. Like we're talking like almost like a poultry farm numbers. It is crazy. So when you do buy that cute fluffy puppy, and again, I am not breed racist as it is, but a lot of times it is cavapoos, cockapoos and stuff. And I work with so many cockapoos, and so many of them are great. But I also see the bad side of them that have come from these places, and they aren't great. And I feel bad for the people, because the people don't know, and there's no point in me telling the people because it's too late. But when you do buy that puppy, that person gets to eat tonight because you paid their bill, and that puppy, that mother dog just reproduces again next year, and that keeps happening, and then it has no life. It's in a cage,
I can't believe that. That figure.
Yeah. It's not like, there's a vet I know, well, I don't actually know her, but on Instagram I follow her, and she was going through dogs.ie, and the other day on her Instagram story, and it was saying underneath, you could see registered number of bitches per breeding facility, as it were. And some were 150, 100, 300, 90, 50, 60, 70, 250, 300.
Jesus.
It was nuts.
Nuts.
So when people turn around and go like, look, I'm making 1.5 million a year here. Well, why am I going to stop? Because these people keep buying from me.
Yeah,
so that's
insane.
where the adopt don't shop kind of agenda comes from. And if you do have to push it that way to stop these places, I get it,
Yeah.
And like, I'm not against getting a puppy. I've gotten a puppy. Like I said, I've gotten puppies. If you get a puppy from a good breeder, fair play to you. There's nothing wrong with it, and you shouldn't feel shamed about it either. But if you're getting a puppy from somewhere you don't know, it is tough. It's tough.
It is. Mero, we're nearly out of time, so I reckon we can get one more question in before we release Mack back to a normal life.
I'm fine, lads. I'm fine.
Release him back.
Go for it.
What was I going to say? I had a follow-up question there. No, it's gone. Sorry.
It's gone. Grant,
Yeah.
do you have any more listeners' questions, or did you get through most of the ones that you wanted to cover off?
No, I got through most of the ones.
I was going to say, I know some of them are duplicates anyway. We got a couple of people asking the same thing. Well, Mac, the last one I'll ask.
Sorry. This is an Instagram question. Is it okay to nip a dog? I think that means like hit him on the nose.
My answer is no. Just because I don't want anything negative coming from me. You can give a correction on a leash, sure. But again, you should probably be shown how to do that. I don't want to tap the dog on the nose and then 20 minutes later give it a piece of food. It's going to turn around and go, well, hold on. Last time you hit me. Why? Well, what am I getting now? So then you kind of maybe have a bit of a disjointed relationship. Like, I can give my dog corrections, but it doesn't harm the relationship because the corrections are coming from the lead or the collar, it's not directly from my body part going to the dog. So anytime the dog comes near my hands, it's very positive. It's for food or a ball or a tug. So I'd say I wouldn't get into the realms of that. And if you feel like you have to do that, I'd say probably get a crate and utilize it and manage the situation maybe a little better. Sorry, that actually sounded so rude. I didn't mean to come across as like such an asshole.
I love when you do your Q&As on your Instagram page and the questions come up and you're like, I'm gonna sound very rude here, but
yeah, it's just like, from my point of view, a lot of it is like, and I appreciate every single answer and stuff and everything follows me, but a lot of it is just the same stuff,
Yeah. Mack, thanks so much for not only giving us a load of information and for helping people out who got in touch with us and all that, but for your time. And I'm definitely going to try the hand feed with the lads and see how I got on. But if people want to get in touch with you, if people want to follow you and watch some of those Q&As that Mero's was talking about there, where can they do it?
Yeah, so I run everything through Instagram. So it's just called Good Boy Dog Training. It'll come up. I also have a website, but the website is mainly, again, a vehicle for the Instagram. So Instagram's where to get me. Just if you want to book a session or have a chat or something, just send me a message.
And amazing. What's the future hold for Good Boy Dog Training? What's the dream, or what do you hope for?
Yeah, I'd try. Hopefully, the goal is to get a facility, and I've been trying for the last 6 months to get somewhere. And the kind of business is growing very, very fast, which is great. Touch wood, it keeps going that way. So as we're kind of on the upward path, I really want to get a spot where I can kind of run a daycare, have training, have a facility, maybe do board and train. So you send a dog for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, do things like that, hire people and all that kind of stuff. But it's just finding the location is what the problem is, So once we find a location, then hopefully that's the goal. And this time next year when we do our next podcast, hopefully that'll be somewhere in the works.
Next year we hope to have you every 3 or 4 months with the amount of.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Sorry, Mac. There was another question about
go for it.
How jumping? How do you stop jumping? I assume it's a puppy.
So Yeah, like that depends if it's jumping on you or another person. If the dog's jumping on me, I don't see that too much as a problem, because it usually means the dog wants to do something. So usually means the dog's motivated and kind of wants to work, so I can kind of use that energy. If it's on other people, you gotta make sure other people aren't winding your dog up and like getting in your dog's face and trying to pet it and stuff. The last thing you want is trying to teach your dog not to jump, and then someone's like, "Oh, your puppy's so cute," and gets in their face. So in those situations, you just have to, again, be a manager and think of the situations you're putting your dog. Why is your dog allowed to jump on someone in the first place? Why are you in that situation? Why are you in that situation with your dog? What is there to gain for you and your dog in that situation? Is your dog going to learn? And if you are on a walk or something and you meet a friend, give your dog a job. So have food in your pocket and just start letting your dog eat out of your hand. So I'm talking to you. I'm like, "Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you." Meanwhile, my other hand is essentially at my dog's mouth and he's eating out of my hand, sitting down. Very good. Now what's happening is the dog is completely neutral to that person. I say to the person, "Hey, please ignore the puppy. I'm trying to train him." And the dog's focused on me and he's eating and he's nice and calm.
Is that common, the jumping?
Yeah, it is. But a lot of it is the people's fault. You know, everybody ignores the dog when it's calm. Everybody wants to play with the dog when it's hyper. So the dog thinks it gets attention when it jumps up on you. But if you can reward your dog when it's calm and doing nothing, your dog is going to start choosing to be calm, especially around the house. You know, if you can just go up and put a piece of food in your dog's mouth when he's asleep, he'll start choosing to chill out more. And out in public, it's hard because, you know, especially with COVID, everyone's waiting outside for coffee and stuff. And then everyone's getting in dogs' faces and the dog's jumping up and stuff like that. So as an owner, you just have to kind of turn around and just like, "Sorry, please don't talk to him. Don't touch him. Like, I'm trying to train him." And then usually people are quite receptive to that.
Lovely. And in terms of the facility, if anyone is listening, look out for some facilities in the Dunleary, Glasshill, Sandy Cove area. Give us a shout if you. What size facility are you talking, Mack?
Yeah, I was like, ideally, like probably around between like 1,000 to 2,000 square foot. Like, I don't want, like, I'm not like, I don't have that much money, so it can't be that big. And like industrial rent isn't too bad. Obviously, it's not as expensive as a house and stuff, or renting an apartment. So about 1,500 square foot would be great, and just somewhere for winter too, that I could get dogs. That way I could get dogs to come to me and work with them that way. And it's just fun spot, you know. I know often you were struggling for a space too when they were
for the lab. So if anyone's listening and they know that know the area, give us a shout and to help our good old friend Mack on. Danny.
Yeah, Mack, it's been a pleasure, and if you do get something up and running, I'll have to take a trip up from Portlaoise with the Wolfpack to give them a couple of hours with you.
Yeah, listen, I've enjoyed it a lot, lad. Thanks a million.
Thanks so much, Mack.
And thanks to everybody that has listened. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed that chat. Enjoyed Mack. Enjoyed learning about.
How could you not? I love dogs.
Oh God! Right,
love
that was. Dogs. And check out Mack on Instagram
at goodboy_dog train. It's brilliant, and all his highlights are brilliant as well. Yeah. Dan,
that
was lovely.
It was. I enjoyed that, Graham. And should other people listening have enjoyed this encounter, where could they listen to the preceding 221 audio presentations that we have given them?
They go on to any podcast provider and they just type in WTS Pod and you'll get all our wonderful previous audio presentations. You can get us on Spotify, Podcast Republic, everywhere and anywhere you can get podcasts. You can also go to WTSpod.com and you can check out our Twitter at WTSPod. Also, you can go if you want to. The lads out there or the girls who listen who want to buy the lads anything, you can also go to manscaped.com to feel, or if you want to feel great down below the belt, you can get any Manscaped products with 20% off. Just enter the coupon WTSPod and you'll get 20% off plus free shipping.
That's it. The best in men's below the waist grooming. And girlos, don't let your fella be lazy. Don't let them have town halls that look like angry Rastafarians. Give them the gift of grooming this Christmas. Manscaped.com, WTS Pod, and that's 20% off and free shipping. I'm telling you now, they'll be smooth and fresh. You'll love it, they'll love it. We'll all be a lot cleaner. Anyway, Mero.
Yes.
Until next week.
Till next week. Clear eyes.
Full hearts.
Can't lose. Too sweet.